In August 1931, Britain faced an economic crisis which turned into a constitutional crisis and led to the formation of the National Government, Britain's only peacetime coalition between 1922 and 2010. And this was a coalition instigated by the sovereign King George V. The National Government was preceded by a minority Labour government led by Ramsay MacDonald, one of the founders of the Labour Party. But this government had to confront the Depression. Unemployment in 1931 was nearly 3 million, around 20% of the labour force. High unemployment was causing strains on the benefit system, and the government feared a budget deficit, followed by a run on the pound. Now, in those days, people thought that needed a reduction in public expenditure. Maynard Keynes' ideas were then in their infancy. And so what Labour proposed to do was to cut all public sector incomes, but also unemployment benefit, by 10%. And this last proposal, cutting unemployment benefit, split the cabinet. A small majority favoured it, but the minority was led by the Foreign Secretary Arthur Henderson, who was the second man in the government, and it became clear the government could not continue. So Ramsay MacDonald submitted his resignation to the King, but the King refused to accept it. He believed MacDonald was the only man to resolve the crisis. He urged him to form an all-party emergency government with the opposition Conservatives and Liberals so that the budget could be balanced. But after that, members of the coalition would return to their original parties and party conflict would resume. MacDonald yielded, though fairly unwillingly. But the National Government proved not to be an all-party government, since Labour refused to join, and indeed expelled anyone who did join, including MacDonald. Only a small handful of MPs followed Ramsay MacDonald. So the National Government was in effect a Conservative Liberal government with MacDonald as a fig leaf. Nor did the government keep its promise to dissolve once the economic crisis was over. Instead, it fought a general election as a national government, something it had explicitly pledged on its formation that it would not do, and the King did nothing to enforce this pledge. In the general election of 1931, the National Government won a massive majority, the largest ever recorded in British history, of over 500 seats, and ruled Britain for the rest of the decade. The Labour Party was crushed. The 1931 crisis was the last major royal intervention in politics, but perhaps if we ever again faced so serious a crisis, the sovereign might again feel the need to act. The crisis shows the sovereign remains a vital part of the British Constitution. In the words of Benjamin Disraeli, Prime Minister in the 19th century, the principles of the English Constitution do not contemplate the absence of personal influence on the part of the sovereign, and if they did, the principles of human nature would prevent the fulfilment of such a theory.